welcome to Food for Thought. I am your host, Ramonasingh, and it's so great to have this conversation with you. We aim to make it inspirational and a way to actually think about some issues that perhaps you don't talk about when you're in school and perhaps you wonder in later years. And today's show is about why communication skills are important in life. And of course, I think it just sounds like it's common sense that communication skills are a necessary part of life. But today we're going to delve into all the different aspects of why you should have communication skills, why you should spend time on it, and the benefit you'll get out of it. And joining me today is Yudhvirjaswal. He is the group editor of Y Media. Hello and welcome.
Thanks, Ramona ji. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and I'm sure our viewers are going to enjoy today's point about communication skills and what's their importance in life. And as you rightly said, so we all know it's very important, but more importantly, how it enhances our lives and how we can get at good communication skills.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's just describe what it is, first of all, okay? It's your ability to speak very clearly and with comprehension of something where the other person who is listening to you or reading your writing, so communication does not just have to be like speaking, it could be through verbal communication or written communication. They should be able to understand it. And there needs to be clarity of thought, and I know that's one of your favorite words. Clarity of thought must be able to come through. And so that's what we mean about being able to communicate and having that as a skill. And it's so necessary in life, and we're going to go into all the reasons why.
Yes, when I think about communication, for me, you're right. Communication is, first of all, it starts with speaking, what you speak, how you communicate. It's also about listening as well. Communication doesn't necessarily mean that you're speaking and waiting for your turn to speak, because you're paying full attention, and of course you're going to go into details later on, full attention to the person whom you're talking and listening to that person. That's very important. And of course, reading is another aspect. Reading is also communication, and writing or any other form of expression. Basically, what I think, any emotion that we feel, any expression that we feel, and how we express it, that is what communication is. And I've heard many people, maybe we'll go into details later on, but just on a very quick note, I've heard many people talking about communication being what we talk with our voice, tongue, or all these things. I think so, and this is my opinion, and we'll discuss this later on. I think so. Talking is maybe even 20-25% of the communication. Other than what you talk with words or anything, that is 75% of the communication.
Yes, a nonverbal communication, yeah.
Nonverbal.
Which is your body language, your posture. Are you nodding to show that you're listening? Yeah.
I think so. Those are more important aspects of communication. And in my viewpoint, I think the best communicator are our eyes. You can feel happiness, you can feel the energy, you can feel anger, you can feel sadness in eyes. I think even before you say anything, it all comes to your eyes, the energy. And this is something I've always felt, right from my childhood. I could see my parents' eyes, my mom's eyes, and continue. Everything comes with experience. And I think if you learn the language of eyes, you will feel that energy, sadness, happiness, love, anger, fear, all these things in the eyes. You can easily feel that. I think so. And even when you see a kid and a mom, a mother will always, they don't have any language to communicate. It's almost a non-verbal communication. But still they can feel, they can understand each other. Why? Because yes, there is communication.
Absolutely. So now I have to ask you, your entire career is based on communication. You host a radio show 5 days a week, which is about 4 hours, and you do multiple other TV shows. So really, yes, you do, how you communicate, but you're really a communicator, and that's your job. So tell us about how that happened for you and what you have to do to practice to become a good communicator.
Yeah, good question. Actually, I was always an extrovert. I was never an introvert, so that helped. First point. But second is, I was very shy, even as a kid, when my aunts would come and visit us in India from Canada. I still remember my buaji, that's what you call that, and she would come in India. I would come out of the hiding, my mom and dad would say, this is buaji's aunt, come. I said, no, I can't even say anything. I'll just be in hiding. So I was very shy, right, as a kid. And even till date, I would say there is some sort of nervousness when I go on stage or anywhere. There is nervousness till date. I'm sharing this for all those who think, who have any stage fear or any if you're camera shy. Yes, I was like that. But when I came to Canada, I wanted to be in front of camera. As much as I was shy, I wanted to be in front of camera. And right from the word go, I started facing camera first, even before I got an opportunity to be in front of the mic. So this was my first opportunity to be in front of camera. I produced and hosted a TV show first. Not that I was as good as I'm not saying I'm very good, but this was not the Yudhvirjaswal that you see today. But one thing I realized, as much as your confidence, first thing, your confidence is important. Second, where does the confidence come from? If you have got very good grip on the subjects that you're talking. Mm-hmm. So be very confident, but also have a very good grip on the subject that you're talking. If you have a very good grip, then of course the confidence will come. Fluency is important. Your tone is important. Where you have to pause, you have to move fast or slow. All these things are very important. Of course, you have to look presentable. These things are important. But over a period of time, I think I'll sum up with only one thing. The most important thing that I have realized. If you speak with just your words from your mouth, then they'll be listened only by ears. This is the most important thing, because especially radio, people can't even see you. They can't even see your expressions. TV is a visual medium where people can see your expression. They can see your eyes, your body movement and everything. They can see your expressions. But on radio, it's only the voice. So if you're speaking from your mouth, people will only listen from your ears. You have to speak from your heart. So when you're speaking, when you're expressing, the topic today is communication, yes, see what your soul is expressing. You have to see that. You have to express your soul. You have to express from your heart. So even if I'm covering a simple news, that this person has been shot dead, it could be, okay, this person has been shot dead. But yes, I feel that way. Why this happened? And I look at it from the parent's perspective. I feel that way. If I am talking about change or betterment of lives, I feel that way. Imagine if I ask you right now, I'm just saying this hypothetically, you're in anguish or you're really angry right now, and I ask you, can you make people laugh? You're angry, you're frustrated. Can you make people laugh? No, you're in a different zone. You have to be in that zone. Because the peak of the communication, what is the peak of communication? This is what I feel, because when I observe anybody in cinema or anybody else, because I also want to learn. Learning, we all learn every day. I think the peak of communication is when you can make people cry, you can make people laugh, you can make people feel the emotions. I could have 100 different emotions, but if I'm not able to express that and it's not resonating with people, I'm not a very good communicator. So I always try to learn all that.
So essentially what you're saying is, because you feel so much for the subject that you are speaking about, therefore the energy that comes from, that radiates from you, and you're saying from the heart center, will translate to the audience. And in this case, if it's over radio, they're going to hear it, and they're going to hear how your tone is, how you're delivering it, the emotion in your voice. And really, I guess that also contributes to the perspectives that you bring to it, because you're looking at it from all those other angles. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. You're absolutely right. Because you have to be very genuine. It has to be original. And of course, two things you can combine. I think whatever I say, now since you're asking me right now, I think two things combine together. One is you have to be very original, your thought process has to be very genuine, and you have to be very well-read. And then you club it with your personal experiences. And also when you share your perspective, why some people could like my perspective, because they think, yeah, here is an original thought. We never thought about it. Like I can give you a simple example. What is your vision for India? It's a simple question. Any caller can pick up a phone. Sir, we all come out from India or Canada. Sir, what is your vision? What is the future of India? This is a very simple question. Anybody, economy could grow better, create job. Okay, this is a very simple answer, economy, jobs. But what is your vision? Now you have to tap into 100 different resources to express yourself. Communication. Mm-hmm. Then you're a brilliant communicator. Now I tap into 100 different resources. What are those resources? What is my experience? What I have read? If I'm an Indian, my feelings. Okay, what is the aspirational curve when I was in my 20s or 30s? What did I want to have? All those hundred of things combined together, all these things come, and then Yudhvir has to bring an answer. What is the future of India? Sir, what is the future of Canada? Sir, what's the future of Pakistan? Sir, so all these things. So bring it all that, then deliver it. If I may ask you right now, Ramonaji, I see you're a brilliant communicator.
Thank you.
Welcome, without being biased. And you articulate things very well. And we'll discuss later, it's a skill. It's not a talent, it's a skill. And when I say I'll also explain what's the difference between skill and talent a little later, but I want to ask you first, it's a skill. How were you able to acquire that? And for our viewers' benefit, because you're very good in communication, so can you highlight how did you acquire that? Or I'm sure it was not always there. I'm sure about that. But how did you acquire that? And highlight, just for our viewers' benefit, few things which can make them a good communicator.
That's great, because I was going to ask you those same exact questions, a few things, but I'll definitely share with that is that, no, I was not always, I was very shy as a child, extremely shy, and to the point where, I'll give you an example. Growing up, I had an older sister. I am the second child, but her and I were together for 6 years of my life before I had my younger siblings and the other siblings that came along. And she was very extroverted, and my parents still say that when I was a child, we went to, a family friend's house, and there were all the kids playing, and I sat on the couch playing with a piece of string for about 3 hours. I think if you do that now, they'd probably go get the kid checked up and see what's wrong with the kid. And for me, I felt like, okay, well, they didn't ask me to play with them, so I just entertained myself with a piece of string. And my parents said, they're like, you just sat there the whole night and you didn't say a word, you didn't need anything, and you were okay in your own zone. So yes, growing up, I was extremely shy, and also I was very, I guess, self-sufficient in that aspect as well, and I still am. I'm an introvert in many ways. I'm a fine medium, like I have extroverted qualities, which I can, of course, converse with people, and I can show up when I need to in a gathering, but I like my private time and my downtime and almost not speaking. Actually, on a daily basis, when I finish my shows here, I actually tell, the people that work here specifically, I'm going to say, okay, I'm not going to speak for the rest of the day. He's like, well, how are you going to do it? You're just going to go home and not talk to anybody? I'm like, yeah, because there's a level of, after talking so much, you're like, okay, I need to be able to center myself. So for me, it is actually an effort to a degree. So yes, it wasn't natural, but I think what helped me was because I felt so passionate about certain things. As my passion grew about certain topics and I felt the need to express it, then I started finding the right words to do it. And also realizing that if I just give somebody a word salad, like just not having a starting point, a middle point, a conclusion, not putting numbers to it, or somehow coming up with ways to how it's going to relate to them, how it changes their life, then it would be lost. Because you could feel a lot of things like you're saying. And for me, again, it was because I was passionate about a topic, or I was upset about something that's happening. I felt it was injustice, or I was excited, for whatever the topic is, and I wanted to communicate it. And it's interesting because most people who know me will say I'm a better listener than a communicator, better listener than a talker, because I listen more than I talk. So it really comes down to, how much do you know about this? How much does it actually move you? So for anybody who's very shy, like I was once upon a time, or like Yudhvirji was very shy at some point, and if you want to get out of that shell, and we're going to tell you so many reasons why you should work on your communication skills, because it's going to change your life when it comes to your personal life, when it comes to your professional life, and just overall, it's going to make your life that much richer. And to be able to do that, we'll start by talking about things that you are absolutely interested in, because when you're interested in something, you've done your research, you've probably, let's just say it's about, cooking, right? You've probably practiced it, you've eaten it, you know which ingredients to use, which ones not to use. Because of all that, you have so much to say. You're almost an expert on the topic. And that makes it so much easier for you to step out of your shell and to be able to talk to somebody else about it, whether that's a friend, family, or even a stranger, if you get into a conversation with them. And then you'll realize that to be able to keep them engaged, you want to be able to take them through, it's a story at the end of the day. You want to talk about the past, the present, and the future. So in this case of cooking, you can say at some point you didn't know how to cook, and then you realized you had to learn how to do it, and you experimented with these ingredients. And then, of course, all the greatness of experiencing it, but also what are the future benefits, how your body's changed, how your minds have changed. And that's what's actually going to keep somebody engaged in narrating that. And of course, when it comes to your workplace, if you can't communicate, oh my goodness, how are you going to solve problems at work? Or even in your personal relationships? How would you even innovate? How can you, even Warren Buffett, actually, the perfect example is, I watched one of his interviews a very long time ago, and he said that when he came out of school, he didn't know how to communicate. And he didn't realize, he goes, you could have the highest GPA, you could, your IQ is so high, but if you do not know, even in business, he goes, if you start a business, but you cannot communicate to your customers what your service is all about, what the product's all about, what's the value proposition, how will they benefit from it? If you can't communicate on that, then you have nothing. And he actually gave an example. He goes, and this is a long time ago, his example was, he's like, not learning how to communicate is like, he said, winking at a woman in the dark. He's like, nothing's gonna happen. She's not gonna know. You have people who want to go into the job market. They're still in school and they're thinking, how do I become a manager? What's my trajectory? And most people intuitively think that, it's by studying hard and it's about having all this knowledge, and it's almost counterintuitive to them that what's good to all this knowledge to have if you don't know how to express it through communication, whether it's verbal or written, you need to be able to know how to do that. And that's why there's so many different mediums of communication. If you're not a great speaker, but you're an excellent writer and you're able to put your point across, think about where our world has come in terms of our evolution. It's through the writers who wrote some of the best, masterpieces, whether it's in poetry, whether it's in, art, sciences, and everything else. If they were not able to communicate properly in a written manner, then where would we be in our comprehension today? Where would we be in our evolution? So, and which also takes me to the point of there's also the giving versus taking attitude when it comes to communication. So what does that mean? What that means is when you're showing up, and what I mean by showing up is that's your nonverbal communication, like being present in the room, making eye contact with the person, showing them that you're here, you're listening, whether you're nodding or agreeing, whatever the case is. You're also, like you said, your perfect example is that you're not just waiting for them to finish and then you're going just to start talking, but you're going to build on what they're saying or address what they're pointing at. Because the worst thing you can do is somebody says something to you after you've spoken and then you just repeat yourself again. Clearly when they said they didn't understand you, and then you just repeat yourself again, like you didn't hear them, or you didn't hear that you need to maybe perhaps explain it better to get your point across. And then sometimes actually the miscommunication, we always hear that, oh, it was a miscommunication, Well, when does miscommunication happen? You're not listening to each other, and you probably haven't worked on your skills to be able to use different vocabulary or explain better, and sometimes maybe in something that's relatable to them to drive your point across. And most times you could actually be saying the same thing. Two people could be saying the same thing. It's just the way they're saying it, it sounds like a disagreement, but really they're saying the same thing just in different ways. And your ability to have good listening skills will help you pinpoint what the connection there is and what the disassociation is. But when I talk about taking versus giving attitude, okay, so this is what I mean. If I show up here today to do this show, Food for Thought, I should come from a giving attitude, not to come here and just brag about myself because I want to increase, perhaps just to feel good about myself, or increase my viewership, or say, here, this is how you can communicate with me or contact me. It's about giving. And sometimes when you come from a giving place, you're less concerned about whether what you're saying is approved by somebody else, whether they agree or disagree, because you're coming to share something of knowledge that will contribute to other people. So therefore, you're going to put yourself in a place of vulnerability by sharing your experiences, personal experiences that maybe you don't want to talk about. Like, did I actually want to talk about that when I was 3? I sat and played with a piece of string for 3 hours? No, I don't want to talk. But I'm going to take the opportunity to explain, to say I was there as a child, and the growth for being able to sit and do a show had to come with a lot of practice. I had to come out of putting myself in discomfort. And yes, I do have stage fright. I still have stage fright. I still get, but that's the most common thing. Most people have stage fright, but it's the only way you overcome it, or you become a little more comfortable in an uncomfortable situation, is through practice. So that's how you would get out of your shell.
My goodness, you've highlighted so many good points, and maybe I can touch upon 2 or 3 of them, but you've highlighted amazing. I must compliment, first of all these points are very good. To begin with, first of all, you said, yes, in all aspects of our lives, you were absolutely right that communication is the key. Even in a relationship, I'll start with the relationship. For me, it's number one thing. If you do not have a good communication between any couples, or any relationship for that matter, I think I don't even consider that as a relationship. The communication for me is number one. If your communication is good between husband and wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, live-in partners, or any couple, if the communication is good, that's the number one thing. Great, you have a great relationship. Of course, it'll be on top 3. If you, for most of the things, if you want a career in business, if you want a career in politics. Barack Obama, one of the things, he's a brilliant orator. I mean, I would always love to listen to him, even after he's not even the president of states anymore. I love to listen to him. You still bring on the speeches of Nelson Mandela, amazing. Abraham Lincoln. You could go on. I mean, there are many cricketers. I mean, Ravi Shastri, one of the things, yes, he was part of the cricket winning World Cup, but Ravi Shastri, amazing, commentator. Again, the communication skills. There's cricket match going on, and you want to listen to great commentators, So I think the good communication skills play a very important part in your life. The good part that I was talking earlier, is it a talent or a skill, and what's the difference? Basically, I think the talent is like, okay, the hand-eye coordination for any sports person, that's a talent. Yes, you have a good hand-eye coordination. That is a talent you have inherent in you, or you're born with a good physique, you had great genes, great height. It's always important. If you have a great height, it's good for bowling, because of course, many fast bowlers, they are 6'2", 6'5", 6'6". That's an added advantage. Height plays a very important role in any sports, whether it's cricket, basketball, especially volleyball, soccer, most of the sports, it does play very important. But this is the thing, hand-eye coordination, it's a talent. But other than hand-eye coordination, how much did I practice? Now I'm acquiring a skill that using my hand-eye coordination, how cleanly I touch the ball. That is the skill that I'm acquiring. So communication for me, you could differ on this one. Communication is not a talent. Nobody was born. Communication starts right from the day when we are born. We all communicate by crying or doing whatever. Now how we acquire that, how we make it better. So that's a good part. It's a skill. We can always better on our communication skills. Third very important point, you just made a very, very good point. Where do you come from? This is why I say you're very good at articulating things. When you said the headline, giving attitude or a taking attitude. So I didn't realize that attitude, for me attitude is very important. I always tell many youngsters or anybody in my family as well, young kids, my niece, my nephews, I said attitude has to be very good for progress. But when you said giving attitude or taking attitude in governance, I said, what is that? But you described it so nicely. And I must say this thing, that yes, I've realized this thing now since you've articulated and explained me so well. I'm also able to understand that, and I've experienced that in my life. One of the things that I was, as a career in engineering, it was like just give and take relationship for me. The communication was I would show up there to work, yes, because I didn't have anything else. I just had an engineering degree, I didn't have anything else, right? So I'm going there as an engineer, taking a paycheck and working there. But when I joined media, I was very passionate about it, and after a certain period of time when almost all my needs are met, financially is doing fine, I think. For the last, I would say 8 or 10 years, I come up with an attitude of sharing. I will not use the word giving, sharing, or how do I even express it? Again, the communication thing, right? I think I come up with an attitude of, service, purpose of life. So these are my things now when I'm working in media. So you're right, and everything has changed for me. The whole zone, the whole energy, the whole aura, everything has changed for me. Because you're right, maybe I'm communicating to this universe. My communication language has changed now. It's no more. I'm not expecting. I'm not on the receiving end. I don't want to be, yes, as much as I'm still receiving, but the objective is not to receive or to give.
Exactly, it's the objective. Yeah, it's your intention, and then you show up with that.
Yeah, thank you for giving that. I think the objective or the intentions have changed. So as the objective has changed, I think you're right, the attitude has changed, and that has brought wonders. And I think this is a great takeaway that Ramona ji has just highlighted. I'll just reiterate that point, that yes, once you have that giving attitude, I think things would change a lot.
Yes, and that's when you're able to tap into making connections from your life experience to what you're talking about, and that's when you can actually feel your audience. And not, maybe audience is not the right word, because that would be if you're public speaking or in a different medium, but even with another person, if it's one-on-one, you're able to feel them more because you want to be able to put something out there that's going to benefit them, not just so you're doing it just for them to reciprocate something back or to feel dependent on you or whatever the reason is, for attention. Because if you show up in a way to receive, then you'll start talking about things that perhaps don't have to do with what the greater objective is. So that's the fine line, and it's really about intention. It changes everything. Once when your intention's in the right place, that's what you're going to put out there. That's what you're going to receive. That's going to be the the energy that goes out there and how it comes back to you as well. When it comes to talent or skill, you said it, and I said, okay, let me look it up and see what it is. I actually think that maybe communication can be a talent because I read this, but of course I think maybe we need to look into it more. So the difference between talent and skill is that talent is an innate ability to do something. It's almost like what they say when you're born with it. Yeah. Skill is something that's a learned ability to do something through practice, through conscious learning, you do it. When it comes to nature, it says it's naturally acquired. A talent is naturally acquired. And when it comes to a skill, it's taught either in an academic situation, or you've picked it up through coaching, or through some way of mechanism of going through the different levels of acquiring that skill, and then practice makes perfect. And then when it comes to possession of talent versus skill, possession is by very few people. And when it comes to a skill, it's by many people, because many people can tap into the skill of doing something, but somebody who's talented, like somebody who's a beautiful singer, no matter how much I may, and I'm not a singer, no matter how much I may learn the skill of being able to read, the language of songs, and I don't even know what it's called, notes, yes, the more I'm able to learn how, and the pitch and all that, I'll still never compare to somebody like, Whitney Houston, God rest her soul in peace, right? That's a whole different level. Obviously, she had her talent, and then she worked on her talent to make it to a whole nother level. And then it says, what does it require? One is recognition. Your talent must be recognized. And it's been said that a talent can be recognized at a very young age. So for parents, when you recognize a talent in your child, make sure you foster it before it gets wasted, because talent can get wasted. And it's something very early on that a parent or family can recognize in a child, whereas when it comes to a skill, it can be developed. So one is you got to recognize the talent. The other one is something that's developed over time. And when it comes to how it's considered, well, one is considered as a natural skill. The other one is considered as a demonstrated talent. So if I'm able to do something, and it gave a really good example. It says an example is talent is singing and skill is computer programming. Right? And so that's interesting. And one's natural, the other one's nurture. Nature versus nurture. Which means, for those who haven't heard of that term, is nature is something that you're born with. So, for example, I was born, as a female. I was born, with hair of a certain texture, skin of a certain texture, my height. This is all nature. My nurture is the country I was born in, my parents, the language they taught me, where I went to school, what my surroundings were. Those are my nurtured things versus nature.
Yeah, no, very nicely explained. Just to build up further on that one, you're right. I mean, if I don't have that sort of vocal cords, so I cannot be a singer like Celine Dion. I really love her singing. So because I don't have those vocal cords, I can rehearse, I can try to acquire that skill, but I don't have the talent there.
Yeah.
Now imagine, and you're right, you have to teach your kids and identify what sort of talent they have. Maybe if I had a talent that yes, I can really articulate things well, or I can present stories. Because if you're a good storyteller, yes, you could be good in media. That's one of the best things. But if you don't acquire knowledge, if you don't acquire that skill, how can you be a good storyteller? Because you have not acquired that.
Some people are able to make up a story right on the spot with their imagination. I've seen it. And they have like zero understanding of what the topic is, but the fact that they're so quick on their feet, and that's what public speaking will give you. It'll help you be really quick on your feet, and you need to be able to do that.
You're right. That also is a talent.
Yeah.
But it can only help to a certain extent, and you should acquire that skill as well. And in case you have the talent, that's great. Being there right on the spot and able to build a story there. But what happens? Say for instance, we're talking about economy. If I do not know what's the fiscal deficit of states today, how could I be discussing? I cannot make up a story right now. I mean, you're talking about debt, you're talking about fiscal numbers.
Not your conversations, yeah.
Yeah. So no, even otherwise, I mean, imagine someone is discussing a post-match, cricket discussion. I mean, you listen to Jeffrey Boycott, and Jeffrey Boycott comes up and he says he hasn't watched the match. He cannot come up with a story. Sir, you're Jeffrey Boycott. Sir Jeffrey Boycott, but thanks. I tuned into Sir Jeffrey Boycott because I wanted to listen to a post-match discussion. You cannot bring up story. You should, not only you must have watched the match, but also Sir Jeffrey Boycott, when he comes, or even when I'm giving a post-match cricket analysis, this match happened in Lords, but I need to know the history of Lords. Then only I can explain. It's the mecca of cricket. I should know that. How the pitch behaves, how the swing comes into play. I should know all these things. Then only I can get something, or I cannot build up a story right there and then. So over a period of time, and also many of my fellow media colleagues, they ask me, and whenever we have a discussion, we have a very open discussion, I tell them, you know what, being in media is not only about delivering news. Two people were hurt today, or here is the economic numbers, as much as it's about covering the news, but broaden your horizon. Broaden your horizon. Learn, acquire as much knowledge as you can. Many people ask me, they say, you're so busy, but sometimes we hear you on your radio or TV. You just watched 2 movies this week. I said, you're mistaken. I watch on an average 6 to 7 movies a week. Every week, I'll definitely watch 6 to 7 movies. Pragya ji, today she just texted me, she said, watch House of Gucci and Persuasion. I said, well, I texted her back. I said, well, you watch that. And it's not about when I'll watch Persuasion, I'll go behind. That Dakota Johnson, what are her movies, who is the director of the movie, what was her mother doing, what's her stepfather. So I'll also do a complete research on that one. Even while I'm watching the movie, I'll pause the movie. We have the luxury of pausing the movie in Netflix and Amazon Prime. I'll pause the movie and then I'll go and do a research on that.
What does that mean for Preeti when she's in the middle of watching a movie and then you pause it on her just so you could read on your handset while she's sitting there?
These are the times, we have 2 sets of movies. I don't want to digress too much, but we have 2 sets of movies. One are those movies we'll watch together. There are other sets of movies if she's doing something in the kitchen or she's doing something. So I have nothing to do, but I'll switch on a movie. So those are the movies I'll keep pausing. I'll be enjoying that. But if something comes to my mind that yes, I have to know this thing, then I'll go on net, I'll find that, and then I'll switch that only. But of course, you're watching together, you don't have that luxury. You can't do that. It's not even sensible to pause the movie. The other person, hey.
In the middle of a dramatic scene, the climax of the movie, you pause it because you want to do your research.
Yeah, and of course, I'm sure most of our viewers will relate to that. We guys have no control over the remote. We always talk about changing the nation. We can't even change a channel at our vision. Well, so we can talk about changing a nation. So this is a very common joke which goes, forget about changing the nation. We can't even change the channel at home. The remote is always with the female folks here. And yeah, we'll have to give the control to them. Talking about communication, another very important point, and I'm sure you're very good at that. How do you articulate things? What actually is articulation, and how do you articulate things so well?
Well, firstly, I didn't know I was doing it so well until I was told I was doing it so well. I think because my objective is to ensure that the person, I'm able to, okay, when I speak, I feel like I'm on borrowed time. I don't know if that sounds strange to some people, but I feel like, you know, I shouldn't just put a word salad out there and speak incoherently and be able to create that sort of noise pollution on other people. Just because I also don't like it, so I'm very mindful of what I do. Because yeah, if I were to hear somebody who's not, you know, it's the comprehension of I can't comprehend what they're saying, if their story goes from one thing to another thing without knowing when it started, when it ended, or what the point of it is, and if it's long running without, I actually personally, I get a little irritated, and because I actively listen. I listen more than I speak. So as I actively listen and I'm hearing all this stuff, for me, it's, you know, it bothers me a little bit. So when it's my time to speak, so I try to make sure that if I'm going to do that, I'm not going to do something I don't like, which is, you know, the person's listening to you. I feel like, you know, you're borrowing their attention because they could be doing so many other things, reading a book, for example, or not listening to you. So if there's value to be had, put it out there, but also explain it in a way where there's a saying, it says, you know, think like a wise man, but speak like a common man, right? So use the vocabulary that they would understand, relate to how, you know, and it's knowing them to a degree, how they would take it. But now, like in this show, obviously I don't know who's watching or who's listening, so obviously I can't relate it to them, but I'll use as much experiences of life, but even common experiences that other people have to drive that home, that point across.
Yeah. You're right, and I think this is again my thought process. Articulating a thing well, it's a skill which you could acquire over a period of time, and again there is some degree of talent involved in that. I must say that it's not just a skill in itself, but like as I just mentioned, you know, the talent is the hand-eye coordination, which comes handy in every sport, whether you're playing tennis, badminton, cricket, soccer, basketball, hand-eye coordination. So that's the talent part, but then there is a skill component to it as well. How well you practice and what are your skills? And I mean, in a basketball, how well you deliver a three-pointer. If I haven't practiced, my hand-eye coordination could be great, but if I've practiced enough, my three-pointers or my straight drives in cricket, they'll come very well. Very similarly, articulating a thing, it has a talent to a certain degree, and of course you have to acquire that skill as well.
And it also comes with thinking about what you're gonna say. Yeah. So don't just like open your mouth and just, or when you're on the internet and just write whatever without actually thinking about what you're saying. Think about what you're saying. Think about, is it valid? Is it not valid? Is it true sometimes? Is it not true other times? Like really think about what you're talking about and connect it to the validity of what you're saying, and that makes a huge difference, because I find some people will start talking, but they haven't really thought through what they're saying, and this perhaps would be in a business meeting. So why you need to learn how to communicate in business, because it means the difference between getting hired, first of all, because your interview, your job interview is about you communicating your skill set about why you're the right person to be hired for that job that you're applying against, you know, other applicants, and sometimes it's hundreds or thousands of applicants depending on how competitive your job market is. So you get hired, but then now it's about communicating with your colleagues about distribution of work, or when you have to work on projects together, and that's how you're going to be able to connect with them, also bond with them, and also understand what's required of you and how you split your tasks. But if you show up, let's say for a business meeting, and you haven't thought through what you're going to say, and you start just speaking, understand you're on borrowed time. Other people are listening to you. Are you wasting their time, or are you adding value? And that's why you should always be conscious of, like, are you giving or are you taking? Because you're taking their time but not adding value. So it's very important to put a lot of thought into what it is that you're putting out there before you open your mouth. And sometimes if you take that time, you're less likely to say things that you're going to regret. In any situation, personal situation, in business, in any situation.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more on that one. 2 points more on this one. One is, I think whenever we're doing any sort of communication, there are 3 things which I think so are quite important. First things first, I think body, because your whole body is communicating, the way you stand, the way you look at the person. And I think one of the finest things in communication, I think so, and I've realized, if anybody is smiling, and smile, not necessarily it comes from the face itself, it comes from the eyes as well. So when you're looking at someone, your eyes should be smiling, your face should be smiling, your whole body language should be smiling, your body, complete body is smiling. So if you can communicate that to anybody through your eyes, through your face, and your whole body is smiling, it's full of energy, I think half the battle is already won.
You're right.
Whether you're in an interview, whether you're in a business meeting, or whether it's a couple meeting, or whatever it's going on. Even in Indian context, we say the female comes with a tray. I don't think that happens anymore now, but yes, there was a time and age where with the arranged marriages, the female comes with a tray, and then how she shows up and how this guy shows up, their whole body language is communicating. So your whole body language is communicating. This is point one. Smiling, full of positive energy. That communication, that could be a strength. Second, I think your tone is very important, more than the fluency or the command of any language. Say, for instance, one person is talking in Arabic, the other was in Urdu. More or less, they're understanding each other. But I think the tone is very important. Yeah. What sort of tone you're using?
It actually makes up for not being the best communicator. You could be an average communicator, but how you show up, like you said, you're not cues, which is your body language, even your tone. Are you enthusiastic to meet somebody, to hear them, to communicate what you are saying? It actually makes up for not being the best articulated communicator.
Yeah, and of course, those are skills that you can acquire.
Yeah.
And I'll suggest, and all those who are watching this show, try acquiring those skills. And most importantly, again, I'll share with my experience, I think, being in media. One of the things is try to acquire as much knowledge as you can. Some people ask me, Yudhvir, how good of a journalist you are. I'd say I don't even know 0.5% of the whole knowledge that's spread in the world. So I've been only in 2 medias. As an engineer as well, do I know the composition of aviation fuel? The answer is no. Even in engineering field, there are hundreds and millions of things that could be. So in journalism as well, if someone asked me what was the railway budget in 1962 for Russia, I wouldn't know. But if I'm talking about certain subjects, I need to acquire a vast knowledge, whether it's from the field of business, whether it's field of entertainment, whether it's field from sports, lifestyle, news, economy, political arena. If you're a political commentator, you need to know lots about politics. You have to have in-depth knowledge, what has happened. So I think acquire that much knowledge. And I'll sum up on this note. There are certain people, you love to listen to them. You say, oh, this person can go on talking for hours, and even after listening to them for hours, you still want to listen to them more. Please, let's listen. And there are other people, with utmost respect, I'm saying this happens with me. I'm not sure whether it happens with others as well. After 3 or 4 minutes, I lose the interest, and then I'm thinking about, there are 2 things going on in my mind other than the conversation. But it's certain times hard to keep paying attention to them. So the only thing you can keep people interested in your conversation is if you have really brilliant knowledge about so many different fields.
Yeah, and and of course, when it comes to, you're right, like thinking about it, having that knowledge base, but I know it sounds like we're setting a really high bar, and for people who are not comfortable in terms of communicating, they're thinking, oh my, how am I going to get that brilliant knowledge, and then I shouldn't communicate until I have it. So there are medium ways, which is already talk about things you're interested in. Is it, whether it's cooking, whether it's a sport, whether it's video games, whatever the case is, whether it's movies, a specific actor or actress, genre of music, and start getting comfortable, not just with your family and friends because you already have them, but also, put yourself out there in networking events, because you're only going to get good at it when you start doing it more, and it helps talking to strangers, because you know what? If you say something embarrassing or you misspoke, then it's okay. You may not see them again. It's fine. So there's less pressure perhaps when it's with strangers. But go to these events. It makes a huge difference. And one thing I do want to clarify is, now when it comes to tone, it's so important, and it really makes up for maybe perhaps being the best communicator, because imagine if you are stressed out and then your phone rings, like you're in the middle of, like, you're having a stressful day and you've lost a few things and you're trying to find it and you're in a rush and you're late, and then all of a sudden your phone rings and you see it's a client, for example, right? And you always want to be on good terms with your client. And so now you ask yourself, do I pick up the phone and they hear me saying, hello, hi, what's going on? Because you're in a rush and you can't find your keys and you've already stepped in food. I don't know, like you're just having a really tough situation, and that might translate in your voice. And even though you don't tell them, but if you say, hello, hi, what's up? And then very abrupt, like, tell me what you want, because I'm busy and I'm in the middle of my emotional experience here. Then perhaps, they're gonna feel something completely different, even though maybe you didn't say anything rude to them, but it's your tone, it's how you're speaking, how you're showing up. The question is, how are you showing up in life? So that makes a huge difference than if you were to perhaps let it go to voicemail when you can collect yourself and you're calm and you've taken deep breaths and everything's back on track. Then you call and say, hi, how are you? I'm sorry I missed your call. Complete difference than if you were to pick up in the middle of a crisis. So your tone means everything. The other point I really want to make is about communication. Is we did a whole episode, a bunch of episodes on law of attraction, and what we talked about is, and you've heard of this since that movie The Secret came out. I don't even know, like now 20 years ago. I don't recall. It was a really long time ago, and it made people realize that I can manifest things into my life by if I think about it and the words I use. And so understand that a big part of what you're inviting into your life is the words that you use. And what are words? That's communication. So don't just throw words out there without thinking about what they are, what they mean. Be very mindful of even the words you use.
Yeah. As I was making the point earlier about
giving and taking.
Giving and taking. You're right. That yes, whatever we say, it always stays in this universe. Whatever word we'll use, it will always. You're right, absolutely right. It will always stay in this universe. But quickly recapping a few things, I'm sure we're almost running out of time. But quickly trying to recap what we discussed. The knowledge part can still come later on, and it will happen over a period of time. It will not happen right away. I mean, keep acquiring knowledge, and maybe after 5 years, 10 years, depending upon how skillful you are or what's your speed. So that'll happen over 5 year, 10 year, 15 years. But to begin with, I'll quickly say this: the body language. First of all, it's very important. The whole body language is very important. You should be smiling. Your eyes should be smiling. Face, body, that should be smiling. That's the first thing. Anybody can do that. Second, tone is very important. And another aspect I want to discuss over here is, I think we touched upon that a little bit. And I have no hesitation in saying that at our place, the rule is very clear. This is communication. Yes, I have no hesitation in saying sorry anytime. Because if the other person is anytime this can happen at work, this can happen outside with strangers, this can happen in a relationship, anywhere, anybody can get agitated. I think your capacity, to really understand the other person, that yes, if the other person, he could be a total stranger, he could be just venting out at you. I have people calling me for so many years, I've never met them, and they have all sorts of things. Some people just want to vent out something. They're a little bit angry with their lives or so many things. So if you could be helping them, what's wrong with that? And this is part of communication. You're just listening to them. They're angry, they're agitated. They don't want. Many times I realized logic or reasoning may not be important. They just need a healing touch. Your communication, you have to be that sort of communicator. They just need a healing touch right now. You can give them logic, they are not in a position to listen to your logic right now. So healing is important. Just say, okay, fine, listen to them. And maybe in a very subtle way, start discussing a few things with them. So I may not even know these guys. I've never met these guys. They could be calling me, and they're my listeners from so many years. And there's a reason. They've built trust. I have to acknowledge that. They built trust in me, and that's why they're calling me. Otherwise, why would they discuss their personal stuff with me? Many people discuss personal. So this is a very important part of communication. If anybody is angry or anything, you get angry, you're definitely going to make things worse. So try building this capacity. Patience is a very important part, and saying sorry. I think I'm very happy that takes the burden off my chest, say, okay, I'm sorry. I'm not here to reason or debate. You're right or I'm right. This is a personal decision. Another part is, whenever I enter into discussion, I don't call it a debate. Communication, again a communication part. We're discussing two things. as much as I might have a very strong conviction about something, that I know this is 100% sure, 100% sure. Even if I have a strong conviction that I'm 100% sure about something, but when I'm entering into a discussion, I won't call it debate, then I want to listen to the other person's viewpoint. Maybe as much as I was thinking before the conversation, I'm 100% convinced this is right, but I don't want to come out of that discussion that yes, I don't want to listen to that person. No, when you're having that sort of communication, try. Maybe the other person shows you a different perspective and you say, wow, as much as I thought this is 100% right, but while communicating, I learned a new thing. Okay, my thing was obsolete, or maybe not right, or maybe it was from my personal experience, or there could be hundreds of things I was thinking on that side. But after this communication, this is a new perspective. So enter into discussion. And I learned this with my experience. Earlier I was, of course, when I was young, when I was in school or college days, yes, you enter into debate to prove your point. So that's another part. There are so many other things, but I think in the interest of time, I'll just say read and acquire knowledge, yes, but do over a period of time. And last thing, from my experience, we both shared that till date, I have no hesitation in saying them. I still have stage fear when the camera, even for a split second, yes, you're collecting your thoughts. Yes, it is important. And when people ask me, we've seen you doing interviews with Prime Minister or anything, yes, it's all part of your imagination, your visualization. If I am doing any interview, I'll share this thing with you. If someone tells me it's 22 minutes or 20 minutes, you will see that most of the times I won't need a watch or anything, I won't need a reminder. I have the whole interview, I do it in my mind for those 22 minutes with the Prime Minister or any celebrity. I had this luxury of interviewing, you would say, whether it's Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan, Kapil Sharma. I doubt there's anybody, the list goes on and on, whom I've interviewed. But all those interviews were already done in my mind, and I did that in media. And last thing I would say, as we've discussed that earlier as well, if there is any stage fear or anything, do it. Do it. That's the only solution to become a good communicator or a good orator. If you had stage fear, don't worry. Go on the stage. Do it. Practice at home. I did practice at home. Practice at home with anyone. And do it. The fear will go away.
Yes, and if you are going to be on stage and you're going to be public speaking, then it's always best to have point forms and not a full speech written out, because that's always going to throw you off, because there's a moment you might go blank, you might have stage fright, but having just point forms is a way to guide you through, because you've already thought through what you want to say, how you're going to connect to the audience, how you're going to get them to participate, and all of that. So that's one key thing. And I would say, start tonight at the dinner table. And when we say how are you going to show up in terms of what are your nonverbal communications, obviously when someone's speaking to you, you don't want to be on your phone looking at it and playing with it. And so the best place to obviously have a conversation with family or friends is at the dinner table. And that's when you're going to get out of your comfort zone and start talking about something. And really you'll be able to gauge, is the person understanding what you're talking about? How well are you able to keep their interest? And of course about things that you like, because you don't necessarily need to have the phone at the dinner table or any distractions.
And a sum up note for me, the best form of communication, I'll just finish in one line. The best form of communication, this is my life experience, is a passionate hug. If you can give anybody a passionate hug, any living creature, what is our communication with any living creatures? A passionate hug, they will definitely understand. Go and passionately hug the wildest animal that you're thinking is the wildest animal. Yeah, we're all creatures, we're all different species. I have no reason to doubt. They will look at your eyes, they will understand your energy, they will understand your feelings. A passionate hug to anybody who's alive, other than a rock, maybe they will not understand the feelings. That's precisely the difference between anybody who's living and a chemical, which is a rock. I think any passionate hug is the best form of communication. I leave it to you with that.
Thank you so much. That's all the time we have. Thank you for joining us today on Food for Thought for this episode of Why Communication Skills Will Only Make Your Life Better. And thank you for sharing your experiences as well.
Thank you, Ramona. It's always so nice to talk to you and learn so much from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Likewise. Until next week, take care and be well.